don't know in the room, and there might be a person. My name is Tashina Giraud. I'm the Director of International Partnerships and Strategic Initiatives for American University, and I'm housed within the Office of Graduate and Professional Studies. Hi. I don't use it because I talk loud enough that I can just talk loud. I don't know. There aren't that many people. Do you need it for the...
It's better. Is it hybrid?
They need it. Yeah, it's not hybrid, but I don't know if it's all. Oh, no, it's
Here, let's... Up there we go.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Mee. I'm the chair of the Environmental Science Department.
I'm Sarah Menke-Fish in the School of Communication, Film, and Media Arts Division.
I'm Mieke Meurs from Economics.
Okay, I go by Simon. Simon Sheng, Professor of Economics.
Thank you. And so, to start us off, we decided to give a little bit of lots of definitions. We're in a school, right? But to kind of talk about internationalization at AU in a snapshot manner, because a lot of us, as we were preparing this session, came to the realization that we don't really know everything. We hear some things, we're not understanding what exactly they are. And so we thought, let's just look at what the state of the art of internationalization at AU today. But also, what is comprehensive internationalization? Because that can mean a lot of different things for people. So ACE qualifies comprehensive internationalization as internationalization that touches the following levels. So leadership and structure. And you can see I left something blank here because we do not have a central international FOMX or a VP of international. We did have OGIS for 2 years. And we did 2 years before that have an international VP. But in the majority of universities in the United States and around the world have a VP level international office that coordinates all of the international activities and strategies. Comprehensive internationalization also includes internationalization in curriculum, all right, which could include COIL, collaborative teaching opportunities. And so we do have this at AU. We'll come back and talk to that. It's also student, staff, and faculty mobility, AU abroad, Fulbright activities, etc. It's support for the faculty and staff that are international and who want to internationalize. Okay. So within research and teaching, there's some of that. Could do some more here. Go back to the campus services and infrastructure. So what services do we offer to international students here? And what international campuses do we have? What is our international footprint? Okay. Then one of the pillars is partnerships, which we're going to go more into today. And institutional commitment and policy within a strategic plan. Okay. So we're talking about comprehensive internationalization. When we can be talking about any one of those things when we're leveraging our networks and working on internationalization. But we're in the key contacts around the school, and you'll have these slides because we're also like who does what in all of that, because there's not a centralized office. It is dispersed around the university. So I handle the partnerships and strategic initiatives. So basically, when something international comes to AU, the president's office or to Vicky's office, they don't know what to do with it. They send it to me, and then I say, yes, it goes here or there, or I deal with it myself. International Student and Scholar Services, which you all know, run by SINEM, underneath Student Affairs, so not underneath the Provost. And then AU Abroad, now that WUJIS has been dismantled, it is now directly underneath the Provost. All right, so part of us are underneath the Provost office, and some of us are underneath the President's office. And then there's school-run international programs and people. So within COGA, you have Julie Roeder. SAS, you have Christine Gettings. At WCL, you actually have Melania Radnovic. Oh, sorry, Melania, if you see this video, your name got cut. And then you have people who have been designated, even though international is not their job, in something I created when I arrived called the International Partnerships Working Group, to coordinate between the schools, actually, and then between AU Abroad and all the services. So Lauren Tabara at CAS, Dave Marcotte at SPA, and Katerina Kugliana at SOC. SOE does not have a person. And the fact is that if something international or international partnerships are the key people in your schools are those people that I work with on a daily basis. We also have people in admissions. You had Evelyn Levinson at undergraduate admissions, which they're currently in the process of replacing her. In the grad schools, the directors of admissions actually are very important to this activity as well. And then, of course, key contacts. If you're international and you don't know about it, we have the AU Global Group. It's a little affinity group within the university. We get together a couple times a year, eat some food, play some games. But it's also there can not be a support group, but for the international faculty and staff at the. And so all of these are components, as you see, of what would be a comprehensive internationalization. But at this time, we do not have, in our current strategy, international was not a huge component. We are waiting, all of us, I think, in anticipation to see what the future strategy will be, because many believe that internationalization is extremely important. And so why internationalize? Okay, so I asked ChatGPT to give me some ideas. Because I was like, hey, let's just do it, right? So pedagogical innovation. And we're going to have Sarah talk a little bit more about that. Bringing a new dynamic to online courses. If you've ever done a lot of online courses, it can be a little, I wouldn't say boring for the students, but sometimes they have a hard time interacting and appropriating the coursework, right? There are many studies that show that doing a COIL or collaborative online international learning actually increases the learning outcomes of your online course. So if you want to get higher satisfaction in learning outcomes, bring in some internationalization. Broader perspectives. Americans, I'm half American, so I can kind of criticize myself. We tend to think a lot about the U.S. first, and then we're very U.S.-centric. And so when we bring in international collaborations, we open up our perspectives and look at different approaches. It can also bring funding opportunities for research when you can do collaborative research. A global network for faculty and for staff and for our students, but also fostering that global competence in students, which is why we send them abroad, right? Adapting to changing global dynamics, increasing diversity in the classroom, enrollment challenges, put that one last, ... ChatGPT got most of those. I had to add a couple things. But so even ChatGPT can understand why it's important to internationalize and stuff. And if you're here, you do too. So for what we're going to do now is I have brought to you 4 extraordinary faculty members who in their own way are internationalizing and leveraging their networks for internationalization and for the university. And they're going to talk about each of them as specific cases and their cases on how they're integrating this into their work. And then we'll come back through and give some more tools. But I'm going to leave this down to my great colleagues. First being Karen.
Hi, everyone. So I guess within our department, to give a broader context, we have kind of a long tradition of doing teaching and research internationally. We have a number of faculty who kind of hail from different countries worldwide. We have a couple from Italy, India, Pakistan. And so some of them have maintained those collaborations. We've hosted Fulbright scholars in our department from, I think, again, Italy, Azerbaijan. We've worked with Brazilian students. We actually have a couple of Brazilian students with us now. And we also send a lot of our students to do study abroad as well as Fulbrights after graduation. I think we have one of the highest rates of our students doing Fulbrights. One of the reasons for this, if you think about it, is that the environment is global. A lot of environmental field work, you have to do it in different places, and a lot of environmental issues kind of, they span the whole world. And so it kind of lends itself pretty naturally to this kind of thing. The particular topic, I guess, relevant to this also is that we're mostly an undergraduate department, but we also do have a small master's program, which generally has kind of hovered between like 12 and 20 students in a given year. Like many departments on campus, we've been kind of challenged with declining enrollments in that program recently. And so one of the things we've been looking at is how to broaden the appeal of our program perhaps to international organizations where there could be like a mutual benefit. And we've been working with Tashina on this partnership with the American University of Sharjah, which is in the UAE. And so this is a university that our former president, Neil Kerwin, he helped found it, right?
So he was contacted to build it, yeah.
Yeah, he was contracted to build. This happened like before I started here. But we have an adjunct faculty member in our department that has collaborated a lot with them and done research with folks there. And she kind of got interested in this idea of forming a partnership because they have a lot of, talented, motivated students, but they don't have a master's program. A lot of them are interested in studying in the U.S. It's a fairly wealthy country. And so she was like, maybe we could work on this. And so over the past year, we've been talking with them, doing a lot of Zoom meetings, and kind of fleshing out a 4+1 program, which is something we already offer to our own students. It means that instead of spending 2 years on a master's, you can kind of combine it with your bachelor's and get the whole thing done in 5 years. And so what we've been doing is figuring out a way that they can do that, doing the 4 years over there and then coming here for their final year, which means they have to get some like AU graduate credit in their senior year there. We've completed the course mapping for that, and it's kind of making its way through the approval process. And we're hoping that the first students will start in either fall of 25 or spring of 26, I think, maybe fall of 26. And so, yeah, we're very excited about it. Our colleagues at AU Sharjah have been really, just really like energetic, enthusiastic, and it's been really great to work with them. Yeah.
I'm Sarah Menke-Fish from the School of Communication, and I'm going to talk with you a little bit about intercultural filmmaking. And actually, it's something I've done for a number of years with schools in Mexico, Costa Rica, and Europe as well, and Madrid. But about a year and a half ago, we all as faculty received an email from Jeff Wang, who was vice provost of OGIST and the Office of Global and International Studies.
Yeah,
Is that the type?
it was only around for 2 years, so it's fine.
Well, anyway, it was a call for, do faculty have any ideas of working with children? And it was like, yes, I do. And so I sent an email and said, yes, I do, because I was trying to think, we're always thinking about ways we can have great experiential learning opportunities for students in the School of Communication and throughout AU. And we're also always thinking about how can we bring more students from other parts of the world to AU, and in particular for us in the School of Communication. And so I responded right away, and I had a quick meeting then with Jeff and learned that 50,000 students from China come to study in the United States every year. And last year, 360 students from the United States studied in China. Well, that seemed to be a rather significant imbalance, and there had been this agreement signed called the YES program by President Xi and President Biden to enable U.S. students to study in China at a greatly reduced price. In other words, there'd be money to help with their airfare and their housing and their dining, etc. And so that's how things got started, talking about what would that look like. And I had some universities in mind through the SELECT program, which is this international group of film schools that AU is a part of. But I wanted to talk also with AU Abroad, and I met them. I heard about Tashina and met her. I talked with my dean in the School of Communication. I talked with the division director in the School of Communication. I talked with Katerina in the graduate office and the undergraduate office, Anna Maria. I wanted to see, I could be on board, but was anybody else on board? And I wanted to make sure, would this have any kind of support in that way? And it was all like, yes, 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 yes. And so it was like, great. And it just so happened that there was going to be this International Film Congress taking place in Beijing this past October. And, well, now, wouldn't that be interesting? I could go there. I could then meet with the different schools. We could cover all these things all in one trip. And in fact, that's what happened. And there was some financial support from AU Abroad, from my division director, from the dean's office, to try to keep this as reasonably priced as possible, to get me flown there, go to this Congress, and then meet with these other schools. And I met with a number of schools at the Film Congress, and that was really interesting. But Tashina and the AU Abroad with Jeff and Ethan, Mark Hayes and Ethan, they had suggested this UIC university, and that was really interesting. It was a combination of a school from Hong Kong and a school from China, and where they were located, and perhaps I could go visit them as well. And it was phenomenal. I did that after making lots of connections at the Select Congress. But I went to UIC, and it was like I just walked on campus at AU over here in China. Engaged students, so excited and enthusiastic, a beautiful campus, great filmmaking opportunities, equipment similar to ours, but something that had never been done there and with our students was to work as these international film teams to create short documentary films of cultural interest. And what would that do? That would perhaps bring students from China to AU students to China. There could be, we even have the Embassy of China on board for screening these films when they are made. And so that was really what we set out to look at. And where we are right now with that project, thanks to this entire collaborative group of people. And as a faculty member, I cannot thank them enough because it takes this village of knowledge to know how do you get the memorandum of agreement or understanding together. And so, boom, Tashina's all over it. And in fact, it's been signed, and it's all done for this 2+2, this kind of dual degree program, exchanges, opportunities. Mark Hayes and Ethan are all on board for presenting this at the next AU Abroad faculty meeting for approval. And our school in the School of Communication is on board as well. We're thinking about, what else might we do? How else might we connect? What will be the next steps? And so I would encourage faculty to recognize that you're not on it alone. And I would say university to make that exchange happen where I taught there for a semester and back. And the big holdup at the end of that one, just before I went, was who would pay for my body if I died in Mexico to ship it back to the U.S., okay? And that was and there were many stumbling blocks along the way. And now I know the answer to that. It'll come out of my life insurance, okay? And so all right, I can answer that question for anybody if that were to occur. So, you have to think about everything, all the details, and then the exciting and fun part of what you might teach, how it might impact students, why it might reach out and get greater impact. But there's one piece that I have failed on and realize I have got to bring into all of these programs, and that's our alumni. Who are the alums in China? When I was there in Beijing, stupid me, did not think about contacting our alumni office to say, who are our alums in China? Because there would have been no reason why I couldn't have met with them in Beijing or in Hong Kong or in Xuguang, where I was there. And it was like, yeah, here was this opportunity. My flight had been paid there. I was there. I could have met with these alums so they would still feel the AU connection. And so that would be one piece that I would encourage everyone to keep in mind. Don't forget about our alums.
So for these two examples, they're very different, right? with Karen's and the environmental science, this came from an institutional relationship because of the contract to do the capacity building or launch AU Sharjah, which, by the way, is now much higher ranked than AU us, right? They're doing amazing, but they didn't have a graduate program. So it was really great because it serves a purpose for both. It's a very equitable partnership, and we really need these students, and they're great students in our environmental studies, right? It also makes it so that they do get some of the credits knocked off before they come, and there's an integrated scholarship. So for the students, it's also very good because they only have to pay for 1 year in DC. They get the same OPT, and there's a reduced tuition fee because we have to be honest, for international students, it's the biggest barrier that they have, right? And with the second example here, I met the UIC rep at a conference because because Sarah had said, I need a partner. And so I was at a conference, an Asian conference, and I looked and saw that there was this school that looked like it was the right profile, met with them. They totally convinced me. And she was like, what is this little school I know nothing about? And so she even met with them before she went to see them. And it was about finding the right partner for her because China is a really big country. And we do have the support of the embassy. And all the things we're doing with this university will be, yes, funded. So the students will only pay maybe 50% of a plane ticket. Everything else will be paid for. Free 5-year visa, free housing, free food. It's going to be great for students who don't have a huge budget to go abroad, right? And so it's turning out to be a faculty-led program for our students. And we're opening them up as an exchange destination. So SOC faculty-led program. It's going to be a undergraduate AU abroad destination. And it's also, inshallah, right, going to be pathways into the degree programs for our school as well. We're working on them after the new Chinese Lunar Year. If you know China at all, everything stops within the next couple of weeks, like our Christmas. And we're going to be working with the faculties to develop specifically for SOC, because I'm treating this as a priority partner for SOC, because we can develop that out well. And if that goes well, then we can open it to other schools. But because the contact came through SOC, and SOC is not in a lot of the other ones we're working on, it's really important that they have also some key partners, right? And so this just goes to show you that a teaching idea, so a partnership that's going to allow for innovation and an amazing experiential learning for a professor who is their interest, is now becoming a service for all of the AU, for AU abroad, and it will hopefully bring students into the classroom. And with environmental science, same thing. We have faculty that go back and forth teaching in between the two. And we're hoping this will increase the research, increase the teaching collaborations. We want to build some coils out so that the undergraduates can already have contact with our faculty before they even get to the point of having to make the decision. So you see, each of those two are great examples of, successful at this point negotiations. And we're at the point of signing that one, and we just signed the MOA for UIC, and we're going to sign additional supplements. But they take time as well. And so Karen, the first idea of doing this was a year ago, because when I met the university, it was a year ago for Sarah. And for same thing for Sharjah, it was about a little less than a year ago, because it's such a good relationship, we could go faster. But just giving it in because just to see why we're bringing this in is that one was a faculty proposal, but because of institutional relations, and this is from a faculty interest in teaching innovation, both are producing larger strategic collaborations.
I wanted to add one thing. I failed to mention that in these programs in the past, students haven't just gone from the School of Communication to the other countries. They've been CAS students that have maybe studied foreign language, or they've been School of International Students, School of International Service students who also have an interest in some type of filmmaking or the knowledge background of that particular area. And so it's when you work with this really great interdisciplinary group of students that makes for really interesting film teams, all right, because they have a content expertise or a language expertise that they bring to it, where the film students have the knowledge of the equipment and the filmmaking strategies and working with that. But it's when you really bring an interdisciplinary core of students to work as these international film teams that makes it exciting.
Okay, so
we're next. So I'm from economics. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our work with Meurs University in Kazakhstan. And then I'll just try to say a few things a little bit more generally and try not to talk too long. So this project came out of a call by IIE. So IIE is the State Department division that runs Fulbright and so on. And so the U.S. Embassy and the Kazakhstani Embassy were looking to bring universities together from the two countries. So they offered a kind of incentive for this by having a small grant proposal opportunity for the universities that decided to work together in this consortium that they wanted to build. So we were responding to this kind of external opportunity, sort of like the one that Tashina found for SOC. But this also really built on department level existing institutional collaboration. So the person at Meurs University who we are working with is somebody who I hosted as a Fulbright scholar a very long time ago. I don't know, in 2008 or something probably. And so, why did I do that? This person was not somebody that I knew at all. I had no relationship with her university, which actually was a different university at that time. But she reached out to me as a Fulbright scholar looking for a host, and I was trying to be helpful, honestly. She was sort of vaguely related to some work I was doing, but not directly, and it was more my trying just to be helpful. And so that kind of random event, then gave rise to a lot of international connections. So I have done research with her. A number of these grants, research projects have been funded. We didn't run the money through AU. We ran it through her institution at Meurs University, but it gave us the opportunity to do a lot of research together. So we've published a lot of papers together. And I'm an advisor now on her Center for Gender Research and Economics at Meurs University. So we had that pre-existing thing, which came together with this external opportunity. And then we brought in environmental sciences because there's a colleague at environmental sciences who I know who works on environmental science. So we did something on environment and economics together, which gave us a kind of hot topic that we could work on. So that was exciting. We didn't get funded. I'm not really that surprised. I feel like this project between the two embassies, there were things, agendas that they had, and so we didn't fit in their agenda. That's fine. Other things will grow out of this. But one of the things that's already growing out of it is, I think it's a 1+1 master's program. I think in environmental science is now the idea. I don't know. I'll leave that one aside. But we're hoping in economics to do a 1+1 master's program. And I just want to say just something about that. We've done this with a number of other institutions. In Colombia, we have a couple, and I can't really remember where else. Tashina's super helpful with this. If you're interested in doing this in your master's program, it's pretty easy to do. The biggest stumbling block when you have these institutional connections to bringing students from your, sister university, if you want, to AU is the cost, right? Students cannot afford to pay our tuition. And so if you can find a way to use some credits at their institution and some credits at your institution to produce a joint degree, that's really important in making it feasible for them. And then Tashina mentioned in passing OPT, so optional practical training. So if the students at the end of their program can do practical training in the United States, that means they will earn some money and also get some professional experience. That also really makes it worthwhile for them to struggle to pay the tuition in that second year of their master's program. So that's one thing that we're hoping that will come out of this for us, in addition to the research that we're doing, is some kind of student exchange, which has lots of other benefits, but also brings students to your program. And then I wanted to just say a couple of other things. So what else does it bring to us? So I feel like these kinds of opportunities bring a lot of international recognition to American universities. So Tashina's been working on improving our ranking in QS Global Rankings, which is very important for foreign students who are wanting to use government money to come to American university. If we're higher ranked, they have a better chance of getting this money. So the more friends we build at these kinds of institutions, the more we're going to improve our ranking on QS Global Ranking. And then the COILS thing, or exposing students at the institutions that you've just signed your 1+1 agreement to have a joint master's program, is so important because the students, again, as I already have said, are facing huge costs to come to American university and do their second degree in their master's program here. And so they need to know why, and they need to know it's going to be a safe, investment, and that they're going to flourish when they're here. And so I think that if we really expect students to come under these, because we have a lot of them, we hardly ever have any students come. We need to do more ahead of time to really reach out to students, present to the students, let them meet our faculty, let them meet our students, and so on, so that they know what they're, investing in.
So I actually kept this slide up because from the moment we started doing this till now, there have been changes. For one, they last minute said, we're not going to do the 1+1 because their market data shows that it's just too expensive. And so, which is lucky we didn't start doing the mapping, which is why we do all of those negotiations ahead of time before we bring in all the faculty, right? So I'm waiting a couple of weeks, and then I'm going to give them propose something called a progression agreement, which means that if a student comes from your institution that's done a undergraduate degree, wants to come to AU for a graduate degree, basically it facilitates their admission. So like waives the application fee and gives an automatic scholarship. Okay. Kogod is the only school that usually makes these, right? And so I have a template now. So if anyone wants to do one, I have a template. And so we'll give that as an option because honestly, what we propose is lower than the average discount rate anyway. So, but it does build a brick. And so the idea we have is some of them will take a little bit longer to convert. And I'm actually convinced that Nahoz will still be doing other things with them. SIS actually is interested in sending graduate students to their Russian studies because they can't send them to Russia anymore. And so we're going to be doing things with them that we would not have done if we had not had this coming from a research project, right? So we have teaching project, research project. And I want to tell the funny anecdote about this is that I get an email one day from a Kazakh university saying, hey, you're in a consortium. It's awesome. Can we partner? Not the same language. And I'm like, what? And so I start on a search and I contact all my international people in each school. Nobody knows what this is. I contact the deans. Nobody knows what this is. I finally go through a sponsored research who says, Kazakhstan, there's this faculty member, Michael Brody. He does stuff there. So I email Michael and he's like, yep, that's us. It's Mieke and Michael. And so I caught on after that and said, okay, so listen, there are people already starting to ask if we want to be partners with them through this consortium. Let's get together. And so the burden of doing the whole MOA process for the faculty, it's not always easy because, as you said, it takes a whole wheelhouse and knowledge of a process that they don't necessarily have, right? Or have time to do or want to do, right? So, but it was also deciding there was a few options. Then there's a second university as well in our little group project, but who we're looking for a partner in Kazakhstan who could be our strategic partner. Kazakhstan is a strategic market, believe it or not. And we have one of the two countries where we have the highest reputation index is Kazakhstan. Because we have a crazy amount of alumni there and former presidents of international organizations who are back there. And so bizarrely, and several of us working there. So bizarrely, Kazakhstan actually for AU is a really key market. And so she helped me find the right partner and get the foot into Kazakhstan, right? And I helped her and Michael with the MOA. And if they have there are other funding options, and we're talking about them in the last emails, because the embassy funds things, and we're not giving up the idea of getting some other funding because their topic is extremely pertinent. And with an international partner, it opens you up to additional types of funding. And so that is a really good example of a research project that could be some formalization and some, yes, they didn't get this grant. They kind of, I wouldn't say lied, but they misled the group, huge consortium of universities, into $50,000 in grant money. And so it was peanuts, basically. But it is really interesting to see how we can also work in that sense as well. And I'd like to talk about when it doesn't work, because it doesn't work every time. And what we really want to do at the beginning, that's not going to work, but we're going to do other things. And then maybe we'll circle back and it'll work in a year or two, right? And what Mieke said is that, because Mieke, if you don't know, she used to be the assistant dean at CAS for graduate studies. And she still has lots of connections in some of the international partnerships that were signed during her time. And she's right. If you do not nurture the partnership, which is why faculty relations are so important, people move out of the institution, they go away, things transition. If you do not nurture the partnership, you won't get people coming through. And that's just something that people have to understand. It's not, we signed an MOA, it's going to work. We have to all work together to make it work.
Okay,
I think I just stand up. So my story is very simple. I think all of us can do. Okay. So whenever I go travel outside to give a presentation, people ask, what about students at American University, right? My answer is always, our best students can compete with those at Harvard and MIT. Okay. Let me give you one example. Like one of our undergraduate students, Jonathan Wallen, he did like undergraduate students here at AU, right? He said, I want to do graduate studies. I said, okay. So I sent him through some connections, did his PhD at Stanford University. How about that? But the first year I met him at Stanford, he has gained 60 pounds with long beards. I said, what happened? Right? Okay. PhD is quite different from undergraduate studies. Okay. He told me, Professor, I never know that. Economics undergraduate is really simple, but PhD, I will not say the word he said. But he survived. Now he's assistant professor at Harvard University. Assistant professor at Harvard. Okay. So that said, my story is about our own students. All of us can do through connections and advisors of our own students. Okay. So about 3 months ago, one of my past PhD students who graduated from AU about 6 years ago contacted me saying that his vice president is going to visit DC. He said, you have some connections at World Bank. So I want to meet the chief economist there. I said, okay. I said, I'm happy to help to set up the connections with the World Bank. I said, is it possible that your vice president and his delegation visit American University? Okay, they said yes. Okay, I think they didn't have that very high hope at the beginning, but at the end, it turns out we have so much in common. Okay, it turns out Tashina had worked with Renmin University of China many years ago at a different institution and has helped to set up the biggest center between French government, French universities, and Renmin University of China. Okay, I think even the next year, or this year now, 2025, the president of France is going to visit there. Also, the president of China, President Xi, is going to visit there. Okay, so they have a big event. Anyhow, and following that conversation, our meeting, the vice president is an economist. Initially, of course, you want to bring more students to economics program, but it turns out at the first step, I think school of business, right? Koga. I just sign up MOAs, build the degrees. I would like Tashina say more about that, right? I think this example, again, like Karen said, it emphasizes the role of alumni. Okay, so what is really important? What faculty can do is about through our own advisor role, right? Our students, that's our best product, is it? Okay, that's our best product. So through this, advisor, advisee special channels we have, we build these connections. So thinking forward, I see next. Okay, next in late summer, we would have this joint conference hosted by Renmin University of China in Shenzhen, close to Hong Kong, China, and on climate change, commodity market, and government policies. Okay, there was 3-day international conference, and unfortunately, we are quite strong. I think they are quite strong in funding. Okay, I think that's a great opportunity for research collaborations, and I look forward to further collaboration between RUC and us. By the way, they are one of the top 3 universities there in China.
So he was saying, unfortunately, we started with Kogod, but how this works is it's like this at AU as well, where the first connection is at an institutional level, right? Even though most of the people in the room were economists on both sides, the central office at this university, and I started working on an MOA, and she said, you know what? I circulated it within the schools. The first one to react is business. They're always the first one to react. They're super fast, okay? They're like, yep, see an opportunity to go. It's the nature of what they do, right? And so we immediately started working on a dual MBA on their side and MS on our side. So they're going to come into sustainability management, finance, and analytics, actually. And so we're in the middle of mapping. So we're doing that mapping right now, in the middle of signing that MOA. So how it works is there's an overall MOA, so memorandum of agreement. And then for everything you do, you have a supplemental contract, right? So this 1+1 dual degree will be one supplement. And then when we do an economics, because I know we're doing an economics, right? I was talking to Simon saying, maybe we should just like on the side, email your buddies in economics and say, let's kickstart economics as well, because we really want economics as well. And there are where, like, for example, in Vietnam, we're working on an agreement that will be a bachelor-master's agreement that they can either go to Kogod or economics, because in some countries, economics and business are in the same place, right? And so it's very often they cross each other, economics and business. But this was a great example of an almost personal connection. At the same time, it's not. He was one of your students. He's an alumni. And when he said that Redmond was coming, I jumped on it because they're one of the best public universities in China. They recruit in the top 0.5% of students in the Gaokao for the high school students. They have incredible international programs, and they know how to do big partnerships. I had 300 students a year coming from them. And so when they said they were coming, I jumped on it like really fast. And I was extremely happy because, actually the Embassy of China here is very excited about this because they are public. And generally, especially in China, I work with private universities, okay, for many reasons. But for this time, the Renmin University of China used to be the People's University. They were built just after World War I with the same idea of AU's idea of being a university for the people, all right, and to train civil servants. And so there are so many different. Hey, I watched the same presentation as you. There are many reasons why they're a really good fit for us. And so again, it's a question of saying, what is the right fit, right? So understanding the right fit. And China is a huge market for us, and we really need those students. And these kind of partnerships will help secure visas in a time where we don't know what we're going into, right? But I think it was great because he's going to send out we're co-organizing this conference, right, in Shenzhen. And often I get our partners send me invitations. Do any of your faculty want to participate in this conference? And unless I know the faculty in those areas, I send it to the dean of the faculty and hope it trickles down, or to an associate dean and hope it trickles down. Sometimes you don't know who to send the calls to. And that's also where it's very helpful within this big system of AU, because if you do go into one of these conferences, it strengthens our partnerships. You go and I will give you missions to do stuff at these partners, recruit students, meet with people, and it can meet with alumni, and it helps us in many different ways. And so you can see Sarah went to a conference and now is coming out with a great project, and they're co-organizing a conference. These are also very important for your own academic work. And so the third part of what we're doing is people often think we don't have a strategy at AU for international strategy. We know what's going on. Everything's willy-nilly. Everything's opportunistic. It's not. There actually is a strategy. It might not have been in the change makers strategy, but if you want, I can give you lots of really, lengthy documents that outline the fact that we do have, and specifically I want to talk about the partnership strategy, because within partnerships, we are talking about these revenue generating partnerships. We're also talking about all the types of international partnerships that we've spoken on. And so in the methodology and priorities of how we determine what we're going to do, in our priorities, we have increasing the coordination and collaboration between the internal stakeholders, between the schools. A partner for one school can really serve another school, potentially, right? There is a really good example. SPA is doing a 1+1 right now with Seoul National University, an amazing university in South Korea. They are one of our long-term exchange partners with AU Abroad. You have to collaborate, you have to coordinate so that the different people working on these things, even if they're not involved, they understand what's going on. And we need to be able to use different parts of the partnership for our means. But as you can see, sometimes we have partnerships where they'll come through economics, but then go to business, and then maybe go to communications, and then maybe go back to education. But we also need to consolidate our student mobility programs. So AU Abroad is not looking at building and opening a lot of new programs right now. They want to really reinforce the ones that work and open a couple programs in areas where they have holes, like the one in China. We have had a serious decrease in our China activities. So we're also looking to open one in India. But other than that, really, they want to consolidate. One of our priorities is also leveraging what we're doing here today, faculty relations and research. There are a lot of people who do research with international colleagues. How can we leverage that? Support international student enrollment objectives. Clearly, there's a demographic cliff. We're in the middle of it. People say we're just hitting it. No, it's been going on for 10 years. If you look at the stats. And we need to improve, in parallel, the international student experience. Because if you do get an influx of international students, you need to make sure they have a great experience. And so how we're doing that is a very data-driven market analysis and demographic approach. After the session, if people want to see the tool, I can show the tool. I decided not to put it up here. They're like, show them the tool. I'm like, no, it's a bit too much maybe for right now. But we're looking at all the external data from Open Doors, the IMF, the OCDE, the World Bank, looking at the different demographics. We're looking at all of the data that we have in terms of market research to decide where we want to do the partnerships. Like when I mentioned Kazakhstan, a very good example. What? Why Kazakhstan? There are very good reasons why Kazakhstan. And strategy is that you have to put the emphasis on strategy, but you still need to leave room for opportunity. Because sometimes something just falls on your lap and you should go with it. We also need to review existing partners and research networks and see if there are things that we need to do differently. For example, Mieke was talking about we have an old agreement for a 1+1 with a school in Colombia, Pontificia Universidad Javeriana. And we are renewing, we are changing it. We're doing a bachelor master's option, a 1+1 option, and we're opening it to all our campuses. And we're hoping, and we're going to work on doing the coils and actually making it more active. And I'm also reaching out to the Organization of American States to fund students to come through that program. So we're looking at existing things and making them better, or maybe more operational, or how can we make it so they work, right? An existing relationship. Due diligence. We have to be very careful who we associate with. If I ever come to you with a school, you know I've done it. I will not bring a bad university to a faculty member or to a school. But sometimes people come to us. We want to partner with AU. And so right now the president's office and provost's office always send me and saying, what should we do? And I'll usually write back saying, let's not, or I will politely write back to the university no, or say, okay, let's think about it. But you have to be very careful to select the right fit for AU's needs. But also, again, funding partnerships. Yesterday, I sent our proposal to the Chinese Scholarship Council to be the 12th university in the United States with a partnership to fund students to graduate and PhD programs at AU. And we got that thanks to the embassy here in DC, because we also hosted for the embassy a group of 60 high school principals and superintendents for a seminar, and we worked with them to build this whole program out. And because we did that, they introduced us to the Scholarship Council saying, yeah, we're not high enough ranked, because we're not. They can't fund people to AU right now unless we become a partner. And so they asked me to do the proposal. We have sent a proposal, and it covers most of the schools to get funding from China. For example, we don't propose programs. They told me not to put anything in there that is security issues with the U.S. government. They will not get their visas. So social science is good, communication is good, economics good. Yeah. QS, yeah. Most of the rankings people look at, so they all look at QS. Some of them do, for example, Saudi Arabia make a combination. They look at QS, the Times, and Shanghai and do like a median. We, unfortunately, 5 or 6 years ago, decided to stop engaging in responding to the QS ranking. So we went from 380 to 780 in the world. And we have fallen underneath the funding thresholds for pretty much every government program. So with some exceptions, like within the SACM for Saudi Arabia, COGOD can get refunded now because they're in the top 50 So for some specific topics, you might get a loophole, but we have fallen down, which is why we started doing some work last year. We climbed 80 places last year. You're doing some more work this year, and I appreciate everybody giving their context. And we're doing a huge push to get back up. But when you fall in like that, it's really hard. The fall is really fast. To climb, it's going to be very strenuous. So we have to do partnerships with governments. And so we also have one submitted to Indonesia. We're going to be submitting things to a couple of Middle Eastern governments. And the idea is that AU says we'll co-fund. We'll put 25%. We'll put part of it in the pie to get those, because they're the best students. They're the best of the best of the best. They're the ones that you want. Plus, they fund their life. They fund their housing. They're really nice to have, and they always get their visas. They come on J visas. And so that's all part of it. So behind everything we do, we say, okay, how from the beginning to the end, to the student experience, to the funding, how can we support all of these partnerships? So if we do propose and you see something coming through, there is a strategy behind it. There's a reason that we're doing it. And hopefully, we don't want to do anything that doesn't bear fruit. It's a waste of all of our time and energy. And so how can you contribute to AU's internationalization? And then leverage your network. Okay? And I'm going to pass around now for Q&A because we do have a good time. I have a bunch of questions in case we didn't talk enough, but like this is my question list I could ask. But if you want to look at it, there are ways you can do it in your teaching. You can do a coil, more or less involved. It could be a little project, it could be a full course. You can do faculty-led programs. Visiting. Go on a visiting proposal. A lot of my partners say, if any of your teachers want to come, we'll fund it. There's so many of them that are interested. If you want to do a visiting thing, come and see me. I can probably find a place that will take you and pay for it. That's really important. The Fulbrights, receiving the Fulbrights, all those teaching collaborations. Promote study abroad within the students. Get your students to go abroad because it is so important that we continue to do the amazing work that AU has been doing and even send more students abroad, because the more that go abroad, the less hopefully war we'll have, the more peace we'll have, the more understanding and empathy we'll have in the world. Go for these opportunities. Fulbright, we're a top center for students. We could do more with our faculty. And honestly, we could do more for, there are some areas where we've fallen off, some of the Fulbright lines that we used to send more to that we're not. Really look and see what could happen. And it's the faculty that end up sending the students. It's the faculty who get the students to go and do it. And I forgot to say, for the UIC, since we signed the MOA, our students can now do their internship program after graduation, fully funded. Everything is funded. And I put it out there in Nature to all the schools and to the Chinese department. And we actually have one student already who I'm interviewing for it that will be going on a fully funded internship after their undergraduate degree from SIS, because they wanted to do something before going into graduate school. So you can see their impact goes all the way down to students. Research. Leverage your research. Just go look. Honestly, there's a lot of sponsored research opportunities with international partners, be it through the Horizon programs or the European Union. They fund a lot. You can get some of the funding if you're partnering in one of the projects. There are a lot of projects within IH or the NSF. If you have international partners, you're more likely to get, especially there's quite a few in the environmental area, and a lot of different in health areas, consortiums, formalize existing collaborations. You're doing a lot with somebody, you're publishing a lot. Why don't we do something? Let's see what we can do between the universities. And strategic. We need your help to make these degree pathways, to establish them and to make them work once they're established in these articulations and enrollment activities. So what Sarah was saying is that, for example, I will go to India for a conference in March. I will also hit all of our partners. I'm going to talk to, I don't know how many groups of students, give all these conferences, do recruitment activities where I'll go hand out goodies from the admissions, because we need to get out there, because AU does not today have a very strong boots on the ground international enrollment strategy. We don't have the resources. We don't have the money. We have not been sending people abroad in a large strategic manner. And so everyone who can do and contribute to this is really important today. So now I'm stopping and opening it up for questions. Nuria's already like, first question, and then Diana's right behind. I saw Nuria first. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm so I can stand up. There you go.
Yeah. So it's about the coil thing. is that supposed to be for courses that are already online as a modality or any course? Because that's a huge kind of, it's been a key issue in TA, and I'm happy to provide some context. But the question is whether it's for online courses that the modality of the course or any course in person that will connect with the students who are someone.
Short answer is both. So, so the easiest to coil has been you have an online class, they have an online class, and you work together to co-build some curriculum, etc. It's easy because everything's online already. Okay. However, you don't have to do. Okay, coil could be you build a syllabus together. You do everything basically. It could become very involved and integrated, or it could be a project. It could also be a project within a in-person class, where it could be a project that they're doing and they work independently with WhatsApp and whatever they're using and do a competition or a case studies or whatever they want. And it could be a smaller part of a larger course. So it can be both. I've done both. They can be both. And we have a really good resource at AU within the Office of Graduate and Professional Studies. Even if it's not graduate, you have Luis Alvarado and the team that will assist faculty in creating their coil, helping them with the format and everything.
And I think I can approach Luis. It would be good to coordinate with us for undergrad in SA because we cannot afford, it's not money, but because of the structure of CIS, we cannot have undergrad courses online, completely online as a modality. That was something that was established after the pandemic. It has caused some issues. Only when HR makes some kind of accommodation because of faculty, that accommodation, that's fine. It's really a bit of a struggle because everybody who requests faculty having, an online course, they do have good reason for asking for this, but we cannot accommodate everybody. So that's been quite a huge thing. And then all of a sudden, learn just by chance that there is a course that half of the class is online because they might happen to be, let's say, Spain. Yeah, it was Chile, actually, one of them. And then the other half of the class that are in person say, me too. And then we go like, no. And I'm just saying, I'm not complaining, maybe I am, but I'm just saying that we need to, and this is part of what you're saying, let's coordinate better because that everything we do has implications beyond, and Mieke is looking at me because we are, she knows as a associate dean that everything looks so good. And then when you implement those things, there might be issues. So
technically, the course in question was last year a coil that was done with our good exchange partner of over 25 years, Universidad de Diego Portales. It was with our undergraduate students in Heritage Spanish and their students in marketing. And yeah, half of it was online and through Zoom and everything. It's not considered an online course. And that's kind of the loophole, is that it's considered a in-person course, even though a component of it is online because of the coil. Honestly, I will connect you with Luis Alvarado. Not a problem, because, also there was a bit of a change in the organization. The digital learning people also got shifted and then put into OGPS as well. But it is a great way if a faculty member wants to have part of it be online as well for international collaboration. It gets tricky when you're working with a 12-hour time difference. It gets tricky. It was easy with Diego Portales, so it's like an hour off, right? But there are different formats that can be used. I had one that was amazing. It was a 24-hour course that never ended. It was a design course. It was a never-ending design project. So we had in Paris a group, in the United States we had a group, and in Japan we had a group. And so the students had to work together like an agency and pass it off when the end of the day to the Americans, and the Americans had to pass it off where they were at to the Japanese, and the Japanese had to pass it back off to the French. And it went like that for like 2 weeks to the end of the projects. And so that's a coil. It could be crazy innovative and awesome. And it could be with NGOs. It could be with lots of different things. And so I think that I can see how it would be annoying to hear like, oh, I can't do an online course. But technically when for Louisa's, they don't qualify it as a fully online program. But it can also be a way to get more online components into undergraduate education. And that rule about no online undergraduate education should definitely be examined. It could be, yeah.
So first of all, thank you, Tashina. It's great to have you here with all the knowledge and background that, you all have talked about. I've had a little side conversation about a Sri Lankan university with Tashina, and she's been great. It jumps right on stuff. I have a comment and a question. So the comment, for those of you who don't know me, I'm in the Career Center, is, Tashina, you referred to the cost of bringing, for a lot of international students, and Mieke, you specifically said like the OPT piece could be a way to get around that. I have a lot of worries about, giving any representations to an international student that they're going to come here and be able to earn money through OPT. Sort of a baseline stat is that 93% of U.S. employers are not willing to even look. I mean, like at the baseline, are not even willing to look at a resume or an application. This is based on like my job postings, right? Like that we have at AU, and this is not inconsistent with what happens nationally. So I see international students coming here with, stars in their eyes about how they're going to be successful and pay back their tuition and so on. And in the bigger perspective, I really worry about sort of almost sort of a false promise that we're doing because we want the tuition dollars, right, of these folks. And that's really it obviously depends on discipline, right? Like I'm talking more broadly. There are certain disciplines where it is really, as you're saying, in econ, that there's a lot of availability of opportunities, and students have a ton of opportunities. But there's across the board, I'm kind of trying to share what might be a concern. And if we move to a more internationalized sort of focus of having a recruitment strategy and so on, I have always advocated that AU doesn't only have the recruitment end, but also has a plan for what's going to happen at the back end, right? Because in the longer term, it's not successful for the university to have a whole bunch of unhappy people going out back into the world, right? Having spent a lot of money and having a lot of debt. So that's my comment. My question, more directly to Sarah, but it's really sort of a bigger picture question. You talked about the filmmaking and that the Chinese embassy is going to show these movies, and fantastic, right? It's like all great. What if a student wants to make a movie on like the Uyghurs, something that's politically charged and unacceptable? And
the films need to stray away from politics and will be of cultural or environmental interest, social. And so those are things that I would talk with the students here before going, and we've already talked about it there. That this is a really grassroots diplomacy in a very soft way of getting to know one another and understand one another's cultures a little bit better. So we set that very clearly, and it's interesting. I had looked at CUC University in Beijing, and when I was there for the conference, we weren't even allowed to. I had to ask for a tour of campus, and then it was a very structured, guided what I would be able to see. And so I realized that was not going to be the right partner.
I often say this, if you see me speaking in public, it's about academic diplomacy. I have a firm, this is why I do what I do. I believe in academic diplomacy. And what we need to teach our students as well is we can't just all be out there with a huge sign. I don't know, we went to the pluralism talk that President Alder organized. You can't all be out there saying, we're right, you're wrong, you suck, right? This is all about also learning. And I've heard a Chinese perspective on the Uyghur conflict that had completely different from what I had understood. And it's about understanding the realities, multiple realities that we live in. And that's part of what she will be doing. yeah, you have to make sure. And it also goes back when we're mapping. I had a fun faculty story. We were looking at the curriculum coming out of one of the universities for a COGAD agreement, a 2+2. And I got I'm not going to say who in the faculty, where they said it, came back to me saying, we should be really thinking about who we're partnering with. They're doing all this indoctrination, we shouldn't be partnering with these people who are just bringing it, etc. And my response back, hopefully was quite polite, was saying, it is obligatory in China to teach certain courses. If you want to draw that line, you will have no Chinese students at all. Our job is that once they've done their 2 years in China and they do 2 years with us, by the end of those 2 years, we've opened them to the rest of the world and our opinions and a different way of saying things, right? Yes, they come with a background about the wonderful Maoism and like military service training and things like that. That's part of their culture. And then they come to us and they learn our culture. And so they said, okay, well, we don't accept those credits for any of our core curriculum or whatever. They're just random, elective credits. But we have to be understanding as a faculty member who's going to be mapping and looking at a mapping, that maybe what they're learning is extremely pertinent in their context. Like with the MBA, they have courses on Chinese economics, Chinese business methods. That's normal. Why wouldn't they, right? And so anyway, but yeah, you have to be really careful. And a student can say something that gets them in trouble in some countries and can also get us in trouble with the government. And this also happened, actually a faculty member with another country, where they said something to somebody who is now a minister, and it's made us not very popular in that country for funding. And so we always have to be careful, because we can be reivindicative, we can have our beliefs and everything like that, but this is a question of diplomacy as well.
Thank you all. This is really interesting. I'm Liz Romig, also in the Career Center with Gihan. I just wanted to reference 2 new-ish resources that might be helpful to you. One, in response to your comment, Sarah, about alumni, we, of course, are always telling students to use LinkedIn. But there's a site called Alumni Fire that is just AU alums. And I use it a lot, actually, when I am looking for international opportunities. And what's slightly different is that it's alumni go on there because they want to actively engage with current students. And they'll list specifically, like, I'm open to doing a job posting or doing a informational interview or whatever. So students have really gotten good conversations out of that. And the other site we're excited about that's new, we're just rolling out, is called Interstride, that we got specifically to better support international students in response to what Gihan mentioned, things like transparency around hiring. This replaces Going Global, a platform we used that listed jobs that were technically open to international students, but didn't really give you stats on did they actually ever hire international students. So Interstride gives tons of data on who has actually hosted students. So it's helpful both for international students and then for our students going abroad, gives all sorts of cultural and business context, et cetera. So for faculty, if you're looking for ways to sort of help students' fears or give context, all of our peer institutions had it, which helped in our argument for getting it. So we're excited to use that more actively, and I can share those links too. They both use your STAU credentials. Yeah. Yeah.
So here on
Thank you. I can send links to, with Alumni Fire, you just use your LinkedIn login. For Interstride, you use your AU credentials. And I think it's just american.interstride.com, but I'll confirm. Yeah.
It's a great resource because it's companies that are used to hiring people with OPT, so it's good for them. Just to say, so before you leave, please do fill out the survey. I'm supposed to say that for CTRL. But also, if you or a faculty member are interested in exploring international opportunities, please contact me. We maybe can't do everything. Maybe it's not pertinent. But for example, next week we have a meeting with Larry Engel in the SOC to talk about what we could do for film. Okay. We can sit down and talk about it together, look at some data, look at where we could go, and we could build out an action plan. All right. Or maybe you have somebody you really want to do it. You have an idea. Maybe it's not me that you need to talk to, but I can definitely help orient your request. And to kind of say I kind of a one-stop shop to the different parts of the international strategy. But please don't hesitate, because AU is a profoundly international institution. And so we can use what we do to make our teaching more innovative, have greater impact in our research, and put those students in those seats, right? So I would like to thank these wonderful faculty members for every day and for coming.